Hello everyone, welcome to the QA demo session. Here I'm going to teach you what is testing, what is the importance of doing testing, how do we do the testing in real time. So here let us see first what is testing. We have many definitions for defining the word testing. Before we go ahead with the definition, right, let us take a small example, right, called as ATM. Now, let's say I'm the customer, so I want to do my banking transactions using the software called as an ATM. So I'll approach to an organization and I'll give the requirements. I'll say that I need a software wherein which it should do my banking transactions. So what would be the banking transactions? You can have like withdrawal, transfer, deposit, right? We do have different type of transactions. Now the customer says that, here I'm saying like customer. The customer says to the organization, says that these are my requirements. Please develop the software according to my requirements. Now organization should gather all these requirements and should develop the product according to the customer requirements. Once the product has been developed, it will be given to the customer. Before giving it to the customer, first organization is going to test a product. Testing will be done in the organization to make sure whether the requirements given by the customer are completely fulfilled or not. Right? Now once it has been tested, now again it will be given back to the customer. As a customer, before accepting the product, I'll test the product to make sure whether the product has been developed according to my business requirements or not. Here I'm talking like business requirements. So when it comes to the customer is going to test the product according to the business scenarios. So he'll test the product to make sure whether his requirements are fulfilled or not. Nothing but whether he is able to do the transactions like withdrawal, deposit, transfer and all using this software. Along with these requirements, the customer is also going to verify whether the application or the software is user friendly or not. Here I'm saying like user friendly, right? In the sense whether any user will be able to understand my application, will be able to use it or not. Right? In the sense, my software should provide the information for the customer in order to understand the product and to use it. Right? If you go to the ATM, first what you have to do, you have to insert a card. After inserting the card, right, application should pop up a message saying that please enter PIN number. Now this message is giving, right, our software is giving this message to the user in order to understand the processing, in order to understand the application, in order to use it. After looking at that message, I'll enter the PIN number. After giving the PIN number, now the software should give the message, right, should give some information to the user saying that please select the type of account, either it is in savings account or the current account. Now by looking at that, I'll do the transaction. In the sense, I'll do the actions here. If it is of current account, I'll select current account. If it is of savings account, I'll select savings account. What is happening here? Application is providing the information to the user in order to understand and in order to use it. Now after selecting, let's say I'm selecting the account as savings. After that, it should provide some information to the user like select the type of transaction like withdrawal or deposit or transfer. Now what is happening here? Application is providing the information to the user in order to understand it. In order to use it. Assume that this information is not being provided by the software. Assume that your software is not giving this information to the user while using it. If this is the case, right, how does a user will understand the application and will use it, right? So in case of the application is not user friendly, even though if all the requirements are fulfilled, right, all the users cannot use it. In order to use its software, right, in case if it doesn't give any information to the user, in order to use it, a special training has to be given. But instead of that, if the application has been developed in such a way that if it provides information to the user in order to understand, in order to use it, any normal user can use the application, right? One more thing. First thing is we are checking about the user friendly. Second is what? Efficient, right? Efficient is what? Checking the speed of the application. Now after inserting the card, immediately it should respond to the user saying that please enter your PIN number, right? It should be done in the fraction of seconds or fraction of milliseconds. Now let's say this information has not been provided to the user. Let's say it is displaying this message after 10 minutes of time. If this is the case, right, as a user, can we wait for 10 minutes of time just to enter the PIN number? No, right? So in the meanwhile, we can go to the bank and we can do the necessary transactions. So application should be more efficient. Application should be developed in such a way that it should respond to the user actions in the fraction of seconds. And it should be developed in such a way that any user should be able to understand your product. But who is going to test all these features? I can say that these are the features of quality, right? Now, in order to satisfy the customer, every organization should try to deliver a quality product. Quality product in the sense a product which meets all the customer requirements. Here user friendly is one of the feature of a quality product. Efficiency is one of the feature of a quality product. When all these features are fulfilled along with your requirements, we'll say that it is a quality product. Right? Now all these things, right, will be tested by the customer before accepting the product from the organization. So similarly, before giving the product to the customer, within the organization also testing should be done to make sure whether we have developed a quality product or not. Quality plays an important role in satisfying the customers. Right? Why quality in the sense? Only when there is a quality in the product, right, then only customer will be satisfied. When the customer is satisfied, then only he can purchase the product. Right? When the customer is going to purchase the product, then only that product will survive in the market or it exists in the market. When the product exists in the market, then only the production of the organization will be increased. When the production gets increased, organization achieves the profits. So it indirectly relates to the quality, indirectly relates to the performance of the organization or relates to the profits to the business or profits to the organization. But how do we ensure that the product is of quality or not? When we do the enough testing. So testing should be done in the organization to make sure that the product meets all the customer requirements. And testing will also be done by the customer before accepting the product from the organization to make sure that it is meeting all my business requirements. Now comes to the organization point of view. Now, who is going to test the product? As I said, testing should be done in the organization before giving the product to the customer. But who is going to test this product, right? So obviously a tester, a test engineer, or a QA analyst or a QA test engineer. So he is the person, right? He is the one who is going to test the product, who is going to make sure whether the product has been developed according to the customer requirements or not. Whether the product has been developed according to the customer requirements or not. Now, in real time, a developer is the one who develops the product according to the customer requirements, right? So as we know, right, there should be a third person who has to verify whether all the requirements are fulfilled or not. So that person is nothing but the tester, a test engineer, who verifies whether the developer has developed the application with all the requirements given by the customer or not, right? So here we can define the word testing like testing is done to ensure that the product is of quality, to ensure that the product meets all the requirements, or to ensure that product satisfies the customers. So we can say that testing, it's a process of finding out the defects in the product, or it's a process of verifying whether the product is of quality or not. Or it is done to make sure that the product meets all the customer requirements. Product meets all the customer requirements. This is how we define the word testing. So why testing in the sense? Why testing should be done? What happens when we release a product to the customer without doing the testing? So when you don't test a product and when you release it to the customer directly, right, your customer starts testing the product. Before accepting, as I said, before accepting, the customer is going to test a product. When customer starts testing the product, he starts identifying the defects, right? So when customer starts identifying the defects, right, so he'll inform all these defects to the organization, right? Now saying that these are the requirements which I have given to you, and this is how the product has been developed, and these are all the defects which are existing in this product. Now if customer identifies the defects, what happens in the sense the customer will lose the impression on the organization. Customer will think that this organization has not followed any standards for developing the product or for testing the product or for developing a quality product. So if the customer lose the confidence, next time the customer will not approach the organization and will not give the requirements to the organization. So when organization does not get any requirements, right, then it cannot develop any applications. When it cannot develop any applications, obviously it comes to the last stage, right? So to survive in the market, to exist in the market, or to get more requirements to be developed, organization should develop a quality product. For that, we have to do the enough testing. Testing is done to make sure that it is a quality product. It is a quality product. Why quality? Quality plays an important role in satisfying the customers. Plays an important role in satisfying the customers. Or quality plays an important role in achieving good profits. So for this we have to do the testing. Now let's see who is going to test the product or who are involved in testing. So obviously the tester is the one who tests the product. Along with the tester, a developer is the one who develops the product and who also tests the product. Then senior management team, then customer and the client. So these are the people who are involved in testing. I can say that these are the persons who are going to test the product. So obviously a tester is the one who tests the product, who verifies whether the product is being developed according to the customer requirements or not. So when this testing will be done in the sense, once a product is being developed by the developer, your tester starts testing the product. Now after testing, right, once the product meets all the customer requirements, then the organization will decide to release this product to the customer. But before releasing, the senior management team of the organization will test the product. Here the senior management team, in the sense it can be a project manager, it can be a project lead, right? The senior consultant. So these are the a team who is going to verify whether the product is of good quality or not. Here I said like developer is also involved in testing. So the main like the developer, actually the main intention is to develop a quality product. He develops the product, right? Before like once the product has been developed, it will be given to the testing team. Before giving this product to the testing team, developer is the one who verifies whether the application is running successfully without any errors or not. So he is the one who is going to test it for the first time to make sure whether the application is running successfully without any errors or not. It is nothing but kind of testing only. So once if the application is running successfully, then it will be given to the QA team or the testing team. Now the testers are involved in the testing team who verifies whether the product is of good quality or not, or who verifies whether the product meets all the requirements or not. Once it has been tested, now the senior management team starts testing your product. So once the senior management team test the product, and once it is ensured that it meets all the requirements, then we are going to release the product to the customer. So here I said like customer is involved in testing as well as client is also involved in testing. So is there any difference between a customer and a client, or both are same? Right? Remember, customer is the one, customer or the end user. I can say like customer or end user. The customer is the one, or the end user is the one who actually uses the product, and the client is the one who actually gives the requirements to the organization for developing the product. Now if I take the example of ATM, right? Now assume that SBI has given the requirements to one of the organization to develop the product called as an ATM. Now here SBI is called as a client. Now we are called as the customers or the end users. Who will be using the product? Actually the final user, nothing but the customer or the end user. We'll also be testing the product to make sure whether it is secured or not, to make sure whether it is efficient or not, to make sure whether it is user friendly or not. Right? We'll also be doing the testing. Similarly, the client will also be testing the product before accepting it from the organization. So these are the people who are involved in testing. So far we have discussed what is testing, why testing should be done, and what is quality, why quality, and who is involved in testing. Now let's see how many ways this testing can be done. Right? So generally this testing can be done in two ways. It can be done manually, which is called as manual testing, and it is done using the tools, set of tools, or a tool called as automation testing. Manual testing and automation testing. So both manual testing and automation will be done by the test engineer. But in automation testing, the tester will take the help of a tool while testing the product. Now let's take a simple example of login page of Gmail. Login page of Gmail. Right? Now let's say I'm the tester and I'm going to test the login page of Gmail. How are we going to test the login page? We have to follow some steps. First, we have to open the browser. These are the steps to be followed. So first I'm going to open the browser, then I'm going to enter the URL in that, like www.gmail.com. gmail.com, right? Then you have to run the URL, execute the URL. After giving the URL, you have to press the enter key. Nothing but you have to run the URL. So when you run the URL, the login page gets displayed. In the login page, you have to enter username, then you have to enter password, then you have to click on OK. So these are the steps to be followed to test the login page of Gmail. Right? Now first time when I'm testing it, I'm going to follow this process. Now generally to test any application, as a tester we have to test the application with valid inputs and with invalid inputs. So in the login web page, first I have to verify with valid username and valid password. When it comes to the invalid inputs, as a tester I have to test with all the scenarios for doing the invalid testing. So what would be the invalid scenarios here? It can be valid username, invalid password, or invalid username, valid password, or invalid username and invalid password. These are the three different combinations for doing the invalid testing. So as a tester, I have to cover these three invalid scenarios. But to test these scenarios, I have to follow the same process, like open the browser, enter the URL, execute the URL, enter the details of username and password in the login page, then click on OK. So this process has to be done manually for testing the application with valid inputs and with invalid inputs. Now assume that while testing the application with invalid inputs, let's say like you have given valid username and invalid password. Now when I enter these inputs, when I click on OK, as the inputs are invalid, I'm expecting an error web page. Nothing but like it should give some error in the login page saying that please enter the valid inputs. This is what I'm expecting as the inputs are invalid. Now, while you are testing the product, you have to make sure whether your expected result is fulfilled or not. Now, what is your expected result? As the inputs are invalid, the expected result is we are expecting an error web page. Now, you have to make sure whether this error web page is getting displayed during execution or not. Now, during execution, whatever the output that you receive is called as the actual result. Technically, we'll call it as an actual result. You have to compare, during execution, you have to compare your expected result with the actual result. Expected result is what you are expecting from the application before executing it. Actual result is what the output of the application, what output that you are receiving while executing the application. Now, when you are done with the execution, you have to compare expected result and actual result. When expected result is equal to the actual result, then it means that your requirement is fulfilled. When expected result is not equal to the actual result, in the sense your requirement is not fulfilled, in the sense it is going to be a defect. So how you are identifying the defects? While executing the application or while testing the application. The role of a tester is only to find out the defects but not to fix it. Now, once the defects are identified, now it will be reported to the developer. So your developer will analyze the defect raised by the tester, right? Will analyze the defect and will fix the defect. Now after fixing, right, again the application, how does the developer is going to fix the defect? By modifying the code. So once the code has been modified in order to fix that code, in order to fix the defect, that modified code will be sent back to the testing team again, right? Will be sent back to the testing team again for retesting. Here, the tester has to perform retesting to make sure that the defects identified by the tester are fixed by the developer or not. Defects identified by the tester are fixed by the developer or not. But how are we going to do this retesting? Again, I have to follow the same process. Nothing but again I have to open the browser, again I have to enter the URL, again I have to enter the inputs of username and password in the login page, and again I have to click on OK. Now the same process has to be done manually by the tester, right, for n number of times until and unless there is of 0 defects. See, first time when you are testing, assume that you have identified 10 defects in the product and you have reported these defects to the developer. So your developer will modify the code to fix these 10 defects. After modifying, again it is sent back to the testing team. Again we have to retest the product to make sure whether these 10 defects are fixed or not. In order to retest, we have to follow the same process. Let's say second time when you are testing it, assume that you have identified 5 defects. Again you will report it to the developer. Developer will modify the code. Again it will be sent back to the testing team. Again we have to retest the product. Third time when you are retesting, assume that you are identifying 2 defects. Again you will report it to the developer. Developer will modify it. Again he will give it to the testing team. Again we have to retest the product by following the same process. right? Assume that when you are testing it for the fourth time, you have identified one defect. Again, we are going to report it to the development team. Developer is going to modify the defect. Again, it is given back to the testing team. So this is how the same process will be repeated for n number of times until and unless this product is of 0 defects. This is a simple application which has got only 5 to 6 steps to be followed to test an application. But when you go into the real time, you will be having a product with n number of applications. And to test with n number of applications, you have to follow n number of steps. Now, if you go this manual testing, right, each and every time you have to follow the same process to test an application manually. So it is a time-consuming process because every step has to be followed manually, right, for testing an application for n number of times until and unless it is of 0 defects. So it is a time-consuming process. Your execution time will be more in manual testing. So to overcome this, we have one of the method called as automation testing. What is automation testing? In the sense, testing done with the help of a tool. So now in automation testing, what we'll do is, whatever the steps which has to be done manually by the tester, we'll instruct the same steps to be done by the tool. We'll instruct all these steps to the tool, nothing but a software, nothing but a robot. See, once we give the instructions to the robot, and once we start asking the robot to repeat the instruction, it blindly does all the instructions one after the another in a fraction of seconds. So the same concept has been applied here. The same steps will be done by the tool in automation testing. Whatever the steps you used to do manually in manual testing, the same steps will be done by the tool in automation testing. So you can save the time here. So execution time takes, the time taken to execute the application is very less when you go with the automation testing. So manual testing is less efficient and automation testing is more efficient. So this is how we can test an application in two ways. We can test it using the tool or we can test it manually. Now this course covers both manual testing and automation testing. Now first we are going to start off with manual testing. Now this course covers how we test an application manually in real time and how we test the application using the tools in real time. So when it comes to the manual testing, here we are going to discuss how a product will be tested manually, what are all the documents to be prepared, right, and what are the steps to be followed to test the product, what is a process to be followed. Here we are going to explain the methodologies to be used to test an application manually. Using the documents, how a tester has to prepare the documents and what documents are required to test an application. Right? Everything will be discussed here. After completion of manual testing, we are going to start off with automation testing, in this automation testing we are going to discuss the tools like Qtp. Qtp stands for Quick Test Professional, which is a product of HP. Previously it was used to be a product of Mercury Interactive. As Mercury Interactive has been undertaken by HP, now we are saying that it is a product of HP. Qtp, it's a functionality tool. It's a functionality tool which tests the functionality of the product. Then we are going to cover Loadrunner. Loadrunner is also the product of HP. It is used to test the performance of the application. It's a performance tool which tests the performance of the application. Then we are going to cover QC, Quality Center. It is also the product of HP, which is the test management tool. test management tool. Now we are going to cover all the HP products, functionality tool, performance tool, and the test management tool. Now in this Q2P we are going to teach you all the basics, then we are going to teach you the VB script, then we are going to teach you how are we going to write the script manually in Q2P in order to test a product. Then comes to the Loadrunner. Loadrunner is a performance tool which is used to do the performance testing. Performance testing is what? Testing the speed of the application. Your functionality testing is what? Testing the behavior of the application. Then we are going to cover QC, Quality Center. It is a test management tool which manages your complete testing process. So these are the things that we are going to cover in this course. So this is what the demo of manual test. This is what the demo of your testing tool session. Thanks for attending the demo. Have a nice day. Take care.